All right, people. Thursday, July 23rd. I got 2 ice packs on me. If you're watching on YouTube, it's hot, and I can't run my fan when I record because it's too loud. The whole week has been brutal hot. Ugh. Muggy, gross. Get home from work every day. Want to jump in the pool. Need to take a shower. It's gross. I feel gross. We're going to kick this one off with no baseball. Actually, we're going to touch baseball real quick. Then we're going to talk some movies. Then we're going to go back to baseball. I wasn't planning on talking baseball at the top here, but I just saw 3 different instances of pretty much the 2 same commercials on MLB TV. I'm watching MLB Network on MLB TV. And MLB is running these like very politically coded ads. They totally look like political ads for like Prop 13. And they're basically trying to get the fans on the owner's side for the CBA coming up this offseason. If you know nothing about the CBA and what's coming this offseason, good on you. Probably just don't even look into it. No, we'll cover that a little bit more. I'm not going to get into it too much here, but they're full-on ads talking about how there needs to be a salary cap and a salary floor, which is terrifying because I've never seen MLB do that. And that just means there's going to be a war this offseason between the players and the owners. And we might not get baseball for at least a good chunk next year. I really hope that doesn't happen. I'd love to be on here talking ball, but we'll see. It might get very messy, which is scary. We'll cover that at some point on here. I hope I can just leave it and cover it for like a month, and then they come to an agreement and we're good, but we might be drawn out. If we are, we're still going to find things to talk about. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that because I literally just saw that like 5 minutes ago, and that's insane. I've never seen that before. But let's get to some fun stuff. I've had a crazy week. Thursday night, The Odyssey came out. Very excited. Huge Christopher Nolan fan. As you guys know, I've talked about it a little bit on here in previous episodes. Huge fan of Inception, one of my favorite movies. Interstellar, one of my favorite movies. The Prestige, I just fell in love with recently. So I was very excited for The Odyssey. I knew my brother was too. He's not as big of like a movie or a Christopher Nolan guy, but he loves like medieval, ancient type of stuff. He likes that type of stuff. He plays those type of games and all that stuff. So we both went opening night, 9:30. Didn't get home until like 1:20 in the morning. Worth it every minute. Then I went to Disneyland on Saturday, which was a full day, wire to wire pretty much. We got back at like 1 a.m. again. And then took the family to go see The Odyssey again last Sunday. So a lot of stuff going on in the last week and a lot of Odyssey. I might go see it again on Sunday. I might see it a 4th time after that. If you think I'm insane for that, totally warranted. I will try to explain myself, though, because I kind of got into movies. I'm not like those dork cinephile. I can have fun at like a bad movie. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need my movies to be perfect and analyze it too much. But I have been getting into movies. And for a while there, I would find these old movies, like The Prestige this year, Inception in like 2020, 2021, somewhere in there. And I just think to myself, like, I love these movies so much. I wish I could see it in the theater on the biggest screen because it's so much cooler that way, especially when movies are visually beautiful like that. So knowing that this was probably going to be up there for one of my favorite movies, and spoiler alert, it is, and that it was going to be so visually stunning. It's the first movie exclusively shot in IMAX. I'm going to go see it in theaters as much as I can because I don't want to be looking at it in 3 years and go, God, I wish I saw that more in theaters. So we might have 3 on the books. We might get 4 in. Who knows? go through some notes on it. I mean, it's insane. It's so cool. I told my dad, and I don't think anyone could be like offended by this movie. I don't think you're gonna come out of it and be like, yeah, that was bad. At worst, the story isn't for you, and you just go, that was cool. Visually, it's so good that I think anyone can enjoy it. Go watch it in IMAX if you can, because it's shot for that format. Every shot could be the poster of the movie. And I say I can see why he pushed for this to be the first movie shot in IMAX, because literally every 3 minutes there's a shot that you just go, damn, that looks so cool. I mean, he did the story justice visually 100%, and then he added some storylines that just make it hit emotionally too. It's so good. The cast is unreal. If you're looking at the cast on paper, you know it's unreal, but everyone just puts up such a good performance. Matt Damon was crazy. I try not to spoil too much if you've seen it. One of the last scenes when he's talking to Penelope, Anne Hathaway's character, and there's the flashbacks of the Trojan War. That's all I'll say. I won't spoil anything else. That's one of the best scenes of all time. It's linked to such a good song that I've probably listened to 50 times since I saw the movie. Ludwig Göransson, his score is insane. And then the other thing on Matt Damon, the siren scene. If you've seen anything about this movie, you've probably seen a little bit about that, him tying himself to the mast, and that should be his Oscar clip. It's unreal. I'm going to try not to list the whole cast, but like other standouts, Anne Hathaway, always amazing. Tom Holland, I saw some stuff on him early that people were saying he was like not the greatest performance in the movie. He was awesome. Robert Pattinson, always a win. And then the guy that that is just soaring up my board of favorite actors is Himesh Patel. He was awesome. I think he is like, he's becoming a dude. And then the other thing is Pattinson. I think it's him and Chalamet. I think they're the it guys right now. I mean, Pattinson is doing everything. He's going to be in Dune later this year. He did what was it? I don't know. That movie with Zendaya about, God, I can't find the name. I don't know. It looks like a breakup movie or something like that. But he's in everything now. Agamemnon, who's played by the Safdie brother. I forget which one's which. You've probably seen the photos of his armor. It's on like the posters and stuff. Every time he's on the screen, coolest character you've ever seen. I mean, it's like Darth Vader levels of like, oh my God, that's the coolest person ever. Yeah, that's kind of what I got for right now. Go see it. Go listen to the music. It's just so well done. Movies are back. Can't wait for Dune 3 later this year. Yeah, that's what we got on the Odyssey. If you end up watching the Odyssey and you want to talk about it, hit me up. My brother and I talked about it for like an hour the next day. It was awesome. Love talking movies. What we're going to do for baseball today, because everyone's doing the mid-season grades, right? And I teased this. Everyone's doing the mid-season grades. We're going to do a mid-season organizational stock up, stock down. Because, like, I'll spoil one, right? You got the Rockies, who they're doing better. I think they're almost at their win total from last year already, which is awesome. At the same time, they're still, like, decently the worst team in the NL. So looking at it like that, you might go, yeah, they're still one of the worst teams in the league. But if you take an organizational approach and understand the fact that they have new people in the front office and they're operating differently and in a little bit more of an exciting fashion, that changes the story. So we're going to go in order from, we have them tiered, and then we have them like just listed 1 through 30. The tiers are more how I feel about the teams. If your team or whatever team is like one off, but they're in the same tier as other teams, I'd say most of it is interchangeable within the tiers. But this is what I'm thinking here. We have, let's see, we got God tier at the top, which you can imagine who's in that. We got Elite tier, We've got great. We've got rising. We've got weird. We've got bad. And we've got League of Their Own bad. And why don't we start at the bottom? Let's go League of Their Own bad. The two teams at the top and the bottom that have their own tier both reside in, air quotes, Los Angeles. One's in Anaheim. But the Angels are 30th. It's sad. It's kind of nice because they're my home team and tickets are pretty cheap. But other than that, I would love to watch the Angels be good. And I don't think that's something that can happen. The note I have here is this team cannot be saved unless ownership has a serious change of heart or sells. I think sell is probably the answer there. Your one hope is the GM got fired. Perry Minasian got fired. The only thing I could see maybe shaking this up is if they do truly have like a good process in hiring their next GM or the president of baseball ops, whatever they're going to do as the head of the front office there. If you get enough good people in for interviews and they like lay down the law and say like, hey, the way you've been operating isn't going to work if you want someone good, maybe something happens with Artie. Outside of that, Artie Moreno has to sell or this team is just going to be continually disappointing. Moving up to the bad tier. 29, I got the Giants. And again, this spans from 25 to 29. Kind of reorder these teams. There's even some teams that I wrestled with having in the tier. Like I'll touch on the Orioles at 26. I could see them pushing up. But Giants at 29. Buster Posey is GMing exactly how you think a former player would. The model is kind of out the window. The scouting has been kind of weird, and he's less risk averse, which on one hand is very exciting. And you look at guys like AJ Preller of the Padres, he's probably the least risk averse GM. But you can't just be a gunslinger in this league. Like you have to stick by the model for most things. And you have to do things right. And he's just been slinging to the fact where they have too much money on the books. They're going to be sellers at the deadline. They're going to try to dump as much money as they can. There's a world where this trade deadline sets them off on like a proper rebuild, and maybe he can do it right, but I just don't have that much confidence in Buster Posey right now. Their farm system isn't great. The few guys at the top are really young, which is there's always so much variance in young guys. So they're at 29. 28 is a team that wouldn't have been here a few years ago. It's the Astros. And if you look at their MLB team, they're certainly not 28. But if they don't sell pretty hard, like at this deadline or next offseason, or maybe even they have a shot the next deadline in a year's time, things get ugly because this is a team that doesn't like paying people, right? Jeremy Pena's set to be a free agent. I'd have to look up what Jordan's doing, but they're not going to be able to afford Jordan unless they have a change of heart and want to pay people. The farm system is ugly. They don't have much ammo to add to this team, so if it were me and I was completely unbiased, didn't have an owner in my ear telling me what to do, I think they go fire sell. Sell Jordan. Sell Jeremy Pena. Maybe you keep Hunter Brown, but just go sell. I don't think that's what's going to happen, and that's why I have them at 28 here, because I think it's going to get messy pretty quick. 27, we got the Rockies. I want it noted that I think this time next year, or maybe even 2 years' time, this could be the team that rises the most, partially because they're ranked so low, but they're doing things differently. They brought in a new front office. It's DePodesta, famously Jonah Hill's character from Moneyball, which is very funny. But they're trying new stuff, which is exciting because a lot of what the Rockies were doing was the same old stuff, and it was never working. So it's going to take some time for their farm to mature. Like they got Ethan Holiday down there, but I like that they're doing something different. I think they could rise up this list. 26 touched on this. We get the Orioles. If you look at their MLB team and the way they've operated, they could be a little higher than this. But if you look at the fact that, like, what was it, 2023-ish, they had this just gluttony of young talent and this wave that was hitting all at the same time from the farm system. Adley, Gunnar, all those white left-handed hitting outfielders, Jackson Holliday, Samuel Basallo, Grayson Rodriguez. And it's just amounted to nothing. And so having that much talent to work with and having nothing to show for it over the last, 4 or 5 years, it's going to get you ranked down here. I like what they've done recently with extending Boz and extending Bradish. The Boz deal, you probably gave up too much for my liking, but you've been searching out for pitching. I don't love the way Elias has been operating, and to squander that much talent is tough. 25, this team could be lower. The Reds, feels like they're just wasting away the primes, not primes, but their time with Ellie, Hunter Green, and Chase Burns. They did just lock up Chase Burns a little bit longer term than what he would have been, but even then, it's not like a long-term deal. Those three are a good foundation to build on, but if you look at what's around them and even what's like coming up around them in the farm, there's not that much to dream on. Like this team, there's some exciting starting pitching outside those two, like Lodolo and Abbott, but they're fine. They're not building blocks. So this team, and we'll touch on the Royals, are kind of in that like, hey, you're wasting some really good players' time here. So you got to get going. We're moving up. We're moving up a tier. We're going to the weird tier. And we're going to start it off at 24 with the Twins. The Twins are weird because their ownership did a full 360. If you remember last year, I think they sold, it was either 11 or 13 players at the deadline. It looked like they were just done, going to sell everything. And then the son, I think it was Tom Pohlad, he took over, and now he wants to win the fans back. So it's like they might not sell this year. Okay, so then you're going in? Who do you have to go in with? Okay, Buxton, cool. He gets hurt a lot, a little scary. Walker Jenkins is coming up soon. Emmanuel Rodriguez is coming up soon. He gets hurt too often. Brooks Lee is a fine player. Royce Lewis gets hurt too often, and he's underperformed. I don't know. Joe Ryan is a year and a half away from free agency. If I'm them, you started the rebuild. Do it. It's been kind of nice that the ownership switched. Like for the fans, I get that, but I'm such a, in my head, it's like if you're floating, pick a direction. I mean, sink or swim. So this is a team that I would want to sink. I would want to reset. I'd want to boost the farm, and I don't think they're going to do that. So they're down here at 24 in the weird tier. 23. Touched on them. Royals, they could be lower, is the note I have. I had them up here because I think if I had them lower, it would be taking too much of this year into account because they've had a bad year. This is something where if they have another year like this next year and it kind of starts to snowball, they could reach Angels level, Mike Trout level, like wasting a superstar's career. Because Bobby Witt Jr. is, if you look at his numbers stacked against Mike Trout early career, very similar. I mean, he's on his way to being an all-time player. Not like inner circle Hall of Fame, but like very close. And if the Royals just waste that and we don't get to see Bobby Witt in the playoffs every once in a while at least, that's going to be a huge shame. 22, we got the Rangers. The Rangers are interesting because they've spent a good amount of money. They like to pick their spots to get aggressive, but the note I have here is they're overly aggressive in weird spots. there's enough talent to have success, but I think they're trending the wrong way in the decisions they've made. Like if you look at this offseason, the Mackenzie Gore trade, if you're going to send over 5 of your best non-Sebastian Walcott prospects, you better be sure that that dude is going to be a dude, and he hasn't been a dude. He's been fine. And there's a world where they get into the playoffs. They are number 1 in the AL East right now, or AL West. So I can't even say, like, oh, there's a world they sneak into the playoffs. They could be in the playoffs this year, for sure. And there's a world where Gore's your 3-starter and he gets hot and he makes that trade worth it. And you go on a run here. But just the process of a lot of the moves they've done, not a huge fan of. And that's going to be kind of a similar story at 21. I have the Red Sox. Got to give credit where credit's due. They develop pitching, like, well. They're in the upper echelon of teams at developing pitching. That doesn't change the fact that Breslow is the strangest person in charge of anything, of a major sports team, of anything. Company. We've talked about him a lot in this young podcast life. We did a whole episode about where I think he's gone wrong and the fact that they should have fired him instead of Cora. We did a good chunk on the fact that someone said he could use a translator. And he speaks English. He's just such a strange person. And he makes these good decisions in some places where you're like, he could do it. He could do it. But I don't know if he's a normal enough person to do this. He's weird. I can't trust him. That's why they're at 21. They could go up. They're on a 15-game win streak, and they have a young core that I like. So I don't know. They're the weirdest team to me. Of like, I love their players. The way they operate frustrates me. 20 is another team that I don't really know what to do with here. Is the Diamondbacks. To me, they're like the definition of kind of a middling team. Like, the farm isn't anything crazy, but they got some guys. The team is pretty good. They've struggled to find pitching for a while now, and they've had some bad luck with injuries in the rotation. But the fact that they're kind of just this middling team in today's game with the third wild card, that's usually good enough to be in the wild card hunt. And to be honest with you, if the Dodgers are in your division, why would you need anything more than that, right? I don't know. So I don't hate what the Diamondbacks are doing. It's just they don't have anything too special going on outside like the top of the lineup with Corbin Carroll and Ketel Marte and Geraldo Perdomo. 19 is hilarious. It's the Mets. This is more of a lesson for life. Money can't buy happiness or championships or even good baseball, because this team is spending out the wazoo. They're one of the worst teams in baseball. I don't know. I know where they go from here. Like, you kind of just recalibrate. You ship off the Luke Weavers and the Freddie Peraltas, and then you build around the Soto, Lindor, Nolan McLean, and others core. The reason I pause and laugh at Lindor Soto is reportedly there's some beef there. So, like, is that a sustainable 1-2 to be the face of your franchise? I don't know. What's that going to look like? So, they're just such weird vibes. Theoretically, it should have worked so well. You get David Stearns from the Brewers. You say, hey, keep doing the Brewers thing of just winning in the margins, and then I'll give you the highest payroll in baseball. It should work, but it doesn't. It just hasn't. And they've been doing this every other year thing, so there are some years where it's, they got to the NLCS. Whoa, okay. But, like, you can't be this inconsistent if you're spending that much money. You just can't. 18, I got the Athletics. They need whatever the Red Sox and some other teams that we'll talk about later, they need whatever they have. They need to develop pitching. Their lineup's awesome. They've got more on the way. They obviously got Leo DeVries in the Mason Miller trade. The thing I'm interested to see is ownership ever going to invest anything? I think now to 2 years from now would be the time with moving to Vegas. If you want to win over some new fans in a new state, go spend some money. Go put an ace out on the bump. That's probably where you'd want to spend the money for this team. So that's what I'm interested to see. I doubt it. I think they're good enough, and Vegas draws enough people from out of town that they might just run it out there and not spend money. But we'll see. 17, I got the Tigers. Again, this is the weird tier. So there's a lot of teams that the Tigers, they're floating in the weird territory. The farm is still pretty good and could be legit if they want to deal Skubal and or Mize. But then again, you locked up Framber to this long deal. He's been bad. You're losing Mize and Skubal, or one of the best pitchers in the league, and a really good 2 or 3 in Mize. And there's only so much this farm can do to replenish that. You've got some exciting pieces, but you got some weird pieces. They're just in this weird territory. I'm very curious to see how they handle the Skubal situation. That'll tell me a lot. 16, I got the Padres. New ownership keeps them afloat in these rankings to me. They're going to need to be creative in the coming years, right? Because they have a ton of money, huge contracts on the books. Xander Bogaerts, Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis. I mean, if they're performing, it becomes palatable, but AJ Preller is going to have to do his thing to be able to win with those 3 contracts, especially the Xander one. I mean, he's getting paid a lot to be not great. So it's going to be interesting to see how he navigates that. If there's anyone, I trust AJ Preller. I mean, he's electric. Next, we got probably the biggest fallers, and I might have penalized them too much, but they are at 15. They're middle of the pack. It's the Blue Jays. This might just be a down year, but some of the stuff is messy. I don't know if you guys have heard this stat. This stat just reached my desk earlier this week. The last home run Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has hit in the Rogers Center at his home ballpark, where they play half their games, was in the NL or the ALDS, ALCS. He hasn't hit a home run there this year. That's bad. The Blue Jays offense has been bad. The crazy thing is they were kind of seen as the Dodgers of the AL. So there was an argument to have them at number 2 at the end of last year. And obviously the World Series, almost winning the World Series, definitely changes your opinion on that. But I don't know. How can you have this bad of a year after that just happened? And you added Dylan Cease, who's been fantastic. He's probably the AL Cy Young favorite. So there's still some really good stuff. The farm isn't great, so there's not really reinforcements coming. But again, this is a team that could just maybe sell, kind of retool, and then bounce back up this list for next year. But they're in the weird tier because how do you fall off that hard after being presumably the second best team in baseball last year? The last team in the weird tier, before we get to the rising tier, another kind of weird one, because if you look at the MLB team, you're 14, really? It's the Phillies. And if you don't know this about the Phillies, Dave Dombrowski is their GM. He does the same thing everywhere he goes. He was in Detroit, and they built that team up. They traded for Miguel Cabrera. They had Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer, Anibal Sanchez, that whole crew over there, right? And they made a World Series run, didn't get it done. Torn apart. They had to go into a deep rebuild. Dombrowski bounced. Went over the Red Sox. I think did he get his World Series in Boston? He might have. But again, built the team up. As soon as it was time to tear it down, bounced. He doesn't do teardowns. He doesn't do rebuilds. And the clock is ticking on the Phillies right now. Their team is still good, right? They still have the Schwarber, the Harper, the Zach Wheeler. The Real Muto is still there. Christopher Sanchez. So they're still good. They could win the World Series this year. But as soon as this clock hits midnight, Dombrowski's out, and you're in for a rebuild, like a bad one, because this farm isn't great. He's probably going to use pieces from the farm to try to get over the hump and win this World Series. Sorry to disrupt the pod. There's the MLB propaganda commercial again. That's crazy. Yeah, so the Phillies are heading for a nosedive. And I'm, as a Nationals fan, kind of excited to see it. Moving into the rising tier. And this is just a very fun grouping of teams. 13, I have the Marlins. The Marlins are a little bit more of the slow burn, where they snuck in 2020. I think they snuck in 2023 as well. So they've had some good teams, and they've kind of been in this like semi-rebuild, looking for like the next dude to build around for a little bit here. But what Peter Bendix does, the GM over there, I have full faith in. I think he's still building towards it, but this could be like a Guardians-Rays type of team, and we'll touch on them later. But we haven't seen those consistent results from them yet. I think, like, give them 2 years' time, and I think they might be there. We'll see. It'll be interesting, though. 12, I got the Pirates. And the Pirates, like the Red Sox, like the Brewers, like the Guardians, they develop pitching as well as almost anyone. The note I have here, though, is like, I think the reason they're rising is because they know they have to maximize the Skeens and Connor Griffin timeline. Connor Griffin's on a little bit longer of a timeline because he came up later and he got that extension. So really, I think you're trying to maximize the Skeens timeline, because when he's a free agent, you're probably not keeping him. So I think they have that awareness of like, hey, we got to go. Like, we got, 4-5 years, and we got to do it like right now. So I think there's might be a little bit more temporary where they push for the next 4 or 5 years, which obviously temporary 4 or 5 years. That's a long time. But they're going to push and become like a better organization spending wise. They're going to be a little bit more aggressive. And then maybe when Skeens leave, you see that pull back a little bit. But we've got a lot of time until then, so we'll see. 11, call me biased, call me whatever you want. Nationals. Everything has gotten elevated since Toboni got the gig. President of Baseball Ops. It feels like we could be looking at them up there with the big boys soon. The biggest question is, like, what does the spending look like in 2 to 3 years' time? There is the big caveat that, maybe MLB wins those negotiations and we get a salary cap and a salary floor and everyone's forced to spend a little bit. But this is an ownership group and a city and a market where you can spend. They have the ability to spend. They've done it before, and they're just not right now, and they haven't since like 2020. So very interested to see. I have all the confidence in the world that even if they don't spend, they could still end up being like a Brewers, Rays, Guardians type of team where they just make the most of no money. And then if you're thinking that way, if you supplement it with some money, then things could get like awesome, which is where my mind dreams when I go to bed every night. The last one in the rising tier should be a surprise to no one. At 10, we got the White Sox. They're first place in the Central, and the farm is booming. I mean, this is probably the biggest stock-up team of the year. Up there with like a team that's 2 spots higher than them in the Cardinals, up there with the Nationals. They're awesome. The MLB team is fun to watch. The farm is good, and you just added Rock Chalowski with the number 1 overall pick. I raved about their draft in the previous episode, but Rock especially, being able to add like the dude at 1 is huge. So they're very exciting, and they're going to be very fun in a year or two. They're already fun right now. So the next tier is the great tier. Just talking about some great ball clubs here. 9, I got the Cubs. And they're tough because they've been struggling with a lot of injuries, especially in that rotation. And the farm is like drying up a little bit because I think they see this window and they're like, it's time to push. But they're still operating at such a high level. And the roster, the lineup, is so good. If they can add a pitcher at the top of that rotation, things get very interesting for this year and beyond. At 8, I got another NL Central team. I got the Cardinals. They've been awesome this year. That farm is growing, and I'm just a big believer in what Chaim Bloom is doing. It's interesting because Chaim Bloom had the problem of, like, he could build out an organization and get them to the point of, like, okay, it's time to go. And then once it got to that point in Boston, he kind of struggled with, like, all right, let's do it. Make the big move, or, like, make the right moves to supplement these young players. A little bit of what Mike Elias has going on in Baltimore. So we'll see once they get to that point if that's still a problem for Chaim Bloom, or if he learned from his mistakes. But we're not there yet. They're building, and they look very good. Last one in this tier is the Yankees. We'll touch on the Brewers, Guardians, Rays in a minute here, but they're sort of the opposite. They're relevant through not only, and maybe not even mostly, I'd put it at like 50% they're relevant through brute spending force. Like, they just spend money. And I can see how fans don't like that. But to be fair to them, elite development of pitching, right? They just develop arms like crazy. Cam Schlittler, he didn't come out of nowhere like he was a prospect, but if I asked you a year ago if I told you a year ago that Cam Schlittler would be a favorite or like the second favorite for Cy Young this year, you'd call me crazy. So they're very good at developing pitching, and they spend money, and they usually spend money in the right ways. Obviously, anytime you're giving out big contracts, you're going to end up with the back end looking like Giancarlo Stanton and DJ LeMahieu and those sorts of things. But for the most part, they go out and get the right guys. Max Fried, Garrett Cole, they locked up Aaron Judge. Stanton's been great in postseason runs for them. So they usually spend their money correctly, and they develop pitching like no other, like some others. Moving up into the elites, let's do the Rays at 6. I'd put them on the same par as the Guardians. I think with all these teams that don't spend but still operate at such a high level, I think it's one team at the top that we'll talk about at number 2, and then it's kind of your Guardians, Rays, and then there's some teams like the Nationals and the White Sox haven't really spent, and the Pirates, they're spending a little bit more, but Marlins are kind of close to that. But the Rays and the Guardians are right there for, like, they just keep developing talent. The one wild card here is Eric Neander, I believe it's the GM over there. I don't know the official title, but he runs things over there. They're the Rays. They do have new ownership, so we'll see if they want to spend some money. He's also a gunslinger. Like, he wanted to trade for Ohtani when he was a rental. So watch out. I think the Rays might be a team to look out for at this deadline. Like, do they have the Scooble move in them? I think they could. So it could get interesting, but they're one of those analytical teams that just operate in the margins, unlike most other teams. Number 5, the Braves. The Braves just keep churning. You kind of thought they were dead there for a second because they had a couple bad years in a row. They've had these injuries just plague them, and even this year they've had injuries plague them, and they just continue to be one of the best teams in baseball. The farm got ugly for a second there, but it's improving. They've had guys in-house that have stepped up and look like legit prospects now, and they've also added to it. Number 4, we got the Mariners. Weird year at the MLB level. I will give you that. Obviously, I talked about them as World Series favorites, or at least my pick to win the World Series. So it's been a bit of a weird year for them, but they're still in the thick of it. Their rotation is still the deepest and one of the best in baseball, and their farm is just great. They got one of the best in baseball. They're just going to keep operating very well. I know Jeff Passan, maybe like a year ago, talked about how the Mariners were had the brightest future because of how good they were and how good the farm is. That still stands to this day. They're going to be very good. We got that young core with that pitching, with more help on the way. Very exciting. Number 3, kept referencing them. It's the Guardians. And I'll give a spoiler to number 2. I think the Guardians are the Brewers light. They're not the Brewers, but they're close. They continue to produce a great product without spending money. Their pitching development is awesome. Their hitters, the way they've scouted hitters is a little weird because for a while there, it was like, get me more Stephen Kwans. And it was all these little lefty contact hitters. And then they realized, like, we need some pop. Like, homers win games in the postseason. We need some pop. So then they did a full reversal and just went for pop, raw power. And it kind of didn't work for a year or two there. And so now they're back to, like, finding a blend of both, which is kind of where you should be. But the farm is still pretty good. It's not as good as some other teams around this, but they just continue to operate and be one of the better teams in baseball without spending money. And I respect the hell out of that. That's probably why they're at 3. They maybe could drop down to the bottom of this tier, but I just respect them too much. Number 2, I don't think the top 2 are even a question. I think one is clearly better than the other because they spend money, but I think these are the 2 highest operating baseball organizations right now, and I don't think it's that close. 2, we got the Brewers. Their farm system right now, in this moment, is one of, like, you could put it up against any other organization's farm system at any point in their history, and you got an argument. Like, this is one of the best farm systems of all time at this moment, to go along with the fact that they have the best record in the MLB. They scouted and produced a guy like Jacob Misiorowski, who just pumps 105. They're going to have the problem that most teams that don't spend have. Once you get into the postseason, you need more power. You have to pay for power in most cases. And you're going to lose in the playoffs. And that's been what's happening to them over these years, even though they've been the best or one of the best teams in baseball throughout the regular seasons. I'd love to see it. I mean, if any year was the year baseball needs the Brewers to win this year, that would be the perfect narrative to shut the owners up about the salary cap and the salary floor. But we'll see. I'd love to see it. But they're just operating at an insane level, and they would be number 1 if it weren't for the Dodgers. I don't know what to say about them. They're a machine. They're the best team in baseball. They have probably the second best farm in baseball behind the Brewers. I mean, they have like 4 legit outfield prospects. You don't even field 4 outfielders. I don't know if you guys knew that, listening to a baseball podcast. Yeah, they're the Dodgers. They would be an elite team without the money. Like, they would be the Brewers without the money, or close to it, or the Rays, the Guardians, like that type of team. But then they have the Yankees money or the Mets money to go with it. And that's where something truly special comes together. And there's a reason a team hasn't three-peated ever, or like in hundreds of years or whatever it is. There's a reason they got a shot for it, because they're operating at a level that we just haven't seen in a very long time. I mean, you can maybe talk about like the 90s, 2000s Yankees, but anytime you add Shohei Ohtani, like a legit historically talented player, it's just special. I hate it. Everyone hates it, but you have to recognize that it's truly special. That's it for the organizational tiering rankings. Again, if you want to talk Odyssey, hit me up. If you want to talk organizations and where your team's at, where other teams are at, if you had a gripe with my rankings, let's do it. Other than that, I think the next episode we're going to be aiming for either Monday or Tuesday. I sent a feeler out for the first guest in podcast history. We'll see. Can't promise anything, but we're going to be talking about the trade deadline, because that is August 3rd, I believe. It's not next Monday, but the Monday after that. And it might be an interesting one. It might be a boring one. Even if it is boring, it'll be interesting in that way. So we're just going to touch on everything trade deadline related on Monday. If you want to hear about that stuff, keep it locked in. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys next week. Have a great weekend.